For a lot of white people, Black people are background noise. We're background characters. It's almost like they forget that we're there. In white people's imagination, Black people exist to either work for them or to entertain them. I stayed longer because I was responsible for other Black women.
Sure.
I was responsible for whether or not they were going to get the raises they actually deserved, right? I was responsible for their career development. I was responsible for their emotional safety in the workplace. Black women talk themselves out of audacity while we report the stories of all the white audacity we see around us. The thing that Black women struggle with the most, and this is why we keep telling ourselves we need these degrees, but we need it. It's because Black women really struggle with their own self-empathy. Black women give themselves no grace. No grace to be human, no grace to fail, no grace to feel.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Coffee No Cream podcast. My name is Erin Braxton and I am the host of Coffee No Cream. Here on Coffee No Cream, we are unapologetically dedicated to Black women, and we share what I like to call Coffee No Cream moments, those things that happen to us Black women in business and in life just because we are Black women. So today we have Tammy Triolo, and Tammy is just a rock star, which you guys are going to see in a minute. I discovered, everybody else had already discovered her. I found Tammy on TikTok, and Tammy is a DEI expert. She really, really is. She's written a book. She shares with us her own Coffee No Cream moment and her experience in corporate America, why she left, when she left. Very, very interesting story. We talk about Black women being sexualized in the workplace and how our bodies offend some of our coworkers. We talk about Tammy being a part of the over 300,000 Black women who have been let go in the United States in 2025. We talk about Black women in education. We cover so many topics in this discussion. It was pretty lengthy, so tune in. I don't want to spend a lot of time telling you how amazing Tammy is. I just want to introduce you to her if you don't know her already. So without further ado, let's just jump right on in to the conversation. I will see you in the episode. Welcome, Tammy. How are you today?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I am super excited that you are here because I have been watching you for a while on TikTok, and you are exactly my kind of guest, which is why I sought you out. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you, for those of you who do not know this amazing woman?
Thank you. So my name is Tammy Triolo. I am the author of that book called The Empathy Gap. It is Black and white. And that book was born out of my work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I do that a little bit different. Foundationally, my work around DEI is rooted in empathy. And so that's who I am. I'm also the principal consultant for my own consulting firm, PCQ Consulting. And we help companies with operations, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as leadership and management training. So that's a little bit about who I am.
You know, before we get into your Coffee No Cream moment, how is that looking for you right now with DEI and this administration? I've heard you talk about it briefly, but how is that for you, like business-wise for you right now?
I think I sit with the 300,000 Black women who are currently unemployed, because
Right.
It wasn't just that DEI went away from a federal level, and one of my biggest clients was a federal agency, right? I will not name it, but they were my biggest client, and basically where the majority of my work was at. And so when that went away, it wasn't just that it went away from a federal level, then you had private organizations basically walking away unprompted, right? And I think it's a reflection of the way the country is going in terms of who's in power. So I sit amongst the 300,000 Black women, but we are Black women. And if we do nothing else, we survive.
Absolutely. I've talked about this the last few weeks on the podcast. This is definitely a time of pivot. And
Yeah.
I feel like, even for me, and, and I'm not in that space, and I've been, it is a time of pivot, for all of us. Mm-hmm. And I feel like with this current administration, while it's messed up and there's a lot of bullshit going on, we will persevere. Yeah. And it's going to put us in a better position. I know that sounds maybe
absolutely
flippant to people, mm-hmm. but we've just got to get back to who we are.
Right.
So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to you. For those of you who don't know or who are joining us for the first time, here on Coffee No Cream, we share what I like to call Coffee No Cream moments, those moments that happen to us Black women in business and in life just because we are Black. And Tammy is going to share with us, and I know she has many. I've heard this woman. So we might get into some other ones, but just tell us just one of your Coffee No Cream moments.
I think so my Coffee No Cream moments is the moment that led me out of corporate America and into pursuing my own consultancy business. I was working as a director in a healthcare company, and I was the single Black director within the whole organization. Single Black woman, single Black director throughout the organization.
How many people?
We were a mid-sized company. We had just under 200 employees.
Okay.
And not only was I promoted to this role, but I was basically given the hell department, the department where nobody wanted to stay, turnover was high, morale was low. And so, why don't give it to the Black woman, right? And I think what they were expecting to happen in promoting me into that role was what they believe of Black people, that we just can't do good work. And the people who are in leadership that are non-Black are there because they're simply better. And so when I first got into the role, all the things that happens in corporate America, we're here to support you, anything you need, all the things, right? And so I availed of all the things because I'm a Black woman, and I see this in my consultancy in terms of like talking to other leaders, particularly Black women who will not avail of help because they want to demonstrate that they are strong and resourceful. Listen, I'm soft life all around. So every resource that you give to me, I will avail of them. So I availed of all the resources and was able to take that department from gross annual of around $500,000 to 1.5 within a year. And this is what happens with Black women because we quickly go from pet to threat, especially when we demonstrate that we are competent, we are good leaders, and we are good managers. And I know for a lot of Black managers, Black leaders as well, some of us can lean into being extra hard on people who look like us because we got to make sure we look good in front of the white folks. I was never that kind of manager. If I wanted my work life to be easy and soft, I wanted my Black employees' work life to be easy and soft. And I was in a meeting, and there was this Black woman. She was a busty Black woman. She was a Black woman. She had TNA. And because she was so top heavy, she had to wear, clothes. And for as covered as this Black woman's body was, we're sitting in the meeting and she walks past, and all of the white people started talking about her body and basically calling her body vulgar and how inappropriate she was dressed. And I was thinking, she's literally covered to her neck. She cannot help that she is Black, and that's the way her body is designed. But I remember sitting in that room and thinking, these people think our very bodies are vulgar. Not our behavior, not our language. Our bodies are vulgar. So that was one moment I just went, okay, who am I in the room with, right? Because I never want to be the acceptable or the good Black in the room of white people. And I think a lot of us as Black managers and leaders, we strive to be the good Black, right? And so we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to talk about race. We don't want to make it about race. And so when that comment was made, I remember saying, what is vulgar about her dress? That is her body. That would be like me saying you're very thin, and I find your very thin body triggering because it reminds me of somebody who has an eating disorder. And I just remember the room getting quiet. And that was like the first time I went, okay, I don't know how much longer you're going to be here.
Was it primarily, I'm sorry, was it primarily women, men? It was a mix?
Mix of men and women. So that was the first kind of my moment. I went, I'm working with and for people who literally see Black bodies as vulgar. I mean, I don't know where you go from there. Shortly after that meeting encountered two of the white women who previously I had a pretty decent working relationship. I would not say that these women were friends. I've never met a white woman friend in the workplace, and I need other Black women to hear that. If that is what you most likely do not have a friend. And I know that's hard because you go to lunch every day, you hang out, you talk to each other's kids. And so two of the white women that I got along with very well started to sabotage my departments in big and small ways. And one of the sabotage happened because one of the women, she had lost 2 employees to me. So because our department was doing so well in terms of revenue, in terms of culture, 2 of her employees transferred into my department. And that, I think, was the last straw for her. And so it just started a rumor campaign about me and my work all the way up to the CEO's office. And I just remember coming into work every day and just feeling the coldness of it. And it was like, oh, we're not sitting down having coffee anymore. This has shifted. Something has changed. And I think, one, speaking out about the way that these people saw Black women's bodies in the workplace, and having white employees leave her department and transfer into mine became a moment. It became quick that it was not sustainable, that I was not going to do well in this company, not because I wasn't a good leader, not because I wasn't a good manager, but because the women that I was working with, the white women I was working with, was going to make it so. And so that was my coffee and cream moment, and I went, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
There's so many questions. So, first of all, I want to circle back before we move forward. It's pretty understood and well known, I feel, that, and this is what I've heard, and you tell me, they put you in a position that's already difficult, right?
Correct.
And it just made me think about how we're notoriously in positions where it's challenging to deal, like public facing positions, like the DMV, or certain things where you're dealing with, you're in positions where it's difficult. So they tend to put Black women in these public facing positions. That's something you've seen a lot of with your experience. Yeah.
Well, the role, the department they put me over was the intake department. So we were literally the first touch after sales turned it over. So my department was, if people had problems, they called there. If something didn't go right, they called there. And you're right, we get these roles where we get either the most difficult of clients, the most difficult of positions, because a lot of times, I think, particularly for Black women, what they want is the caricature of us they have imagined. The very sassy, the eye rolling, the neck rolling. If somebody gets out of hand, the Black woman is going to put her in place. If something isn't done right, the Black woman is going to do it. And I do see that a lot in corporate. And, I think it's partially why I got put over that department, because it was one of the most front-facing departments in the org. And not only was it the front-facing department in the org, it was filled with Black women and Latino women employees. And so people think Black women are difficult to deal with.
Real quick, guys, I want to take this moment to say thank you if you made it this far. Thank you so much for enjoying and absorbing and consuming this content. If you like it, love it, or anything in between, please please share, please subscribe to the channel. We are trying to grow this environment, this community. This is a community for Black women. that we are creating over here where we want Black women to win. I want Black women to win, which is why I created this community. So definitely like, share, subscribe. Also, I've created a Facebook group where we continue the conversation. We do check to make sure that you are who you say you are. So if you like conversations like this and you want to hop over to Facebook and introduce yourself to us and join in, the link is in the description box below. Also, I am now offering motion hours. So many of you guys have reached out to me asking me, do I consult? How can you get more? How can I talk to you? Have you help me through my pivot season, which Tammy and I have definitely talked about in this episode. So if that is something that appeals to you, go ahead and pop over to coffeenocream.com/free and book your motion hour with me, because we're all about staying in motion. And I think that's about it. Oh, one more thing. We've got the free educational resource library, almost 2,000 free courses at higher learning institutions, totally free. Just go to coffeenocream.com/free. That's it. That's all of the housekeeping that I have, guys. So let's get back to the episode. Okay, next, let's go back to your coffee, no cream moment, because I want to address it. We haven't talked about this subject about how we're sexualized. Our bodies are sexualized. Like literally, as I was sitting here prepping and I was listening to TikTok in the background, I was listening to a young woman who had very, very full lips. And she was just talking about her brothers, her uncles, you know, people leaving comments and stuff like that. So we haven't talked about that. So my whole thing is the fact that they felt comfortable. Were they trying to speak under their breaths?
No.
Or they just said it outright, like knowing you could hear?
Yeah. And I think they said it as like, why, like we all would just see this body in the same way. Right. It's almost like they forgot that they were sexualizing a Black body, for which I'm in. I am in the Black body. I'm a woman who is full chested and have a behind. Now it's proportional to my height and all the other things, right? So I don't look out of place. And she was well endowed in both directions. But I remember thinking, but that's my body. Maybe just in a smaller frame, but that is my body. And when I'm not in the room and I walk by your offices, what are you saying about my body?
Right. It's like that whole, they forget who they're talking to. They forget.
So I had done a TikTok and I don't have it pinned anymore, but it went like crazy viral. And what I said in that TikTok is that for a lot of white people, Black people are background noise. We're background characters. It's almost like they forget that we're there. And I told a story. It was a white gentleman that came on TikTok, and he talked about how this Black maid in South Africa was able to have these two white men arrested because they had killed a Black man, and they were talking about the murder as their Black maid was just taking care of their house. It's almost as if they forgot she was in the room. And so because in white people's imagination, Black people exist to either work for them or to entertain them. They forget that we have we're casting our own central roles in life. And so we're background to them. And I think in that moment, I just became a background character to the main event, which is them, that they were there. And it wasn't until I said something, it was almost like, oh, you're here. And
so,
like, yeah.
What was the reaction when you spoke up about it? What was their feedback or reaction?
The white women said, well, it's not vulgar. She can't help that that's how she's built, but my goodness. And I said, what is the my goodness about? What do you purport that she does? If she cannot help that she's built that way, what is the my goodness about? Right. One of the ladies said, she said, I'm just saying my goodness, like that's a lot to have on your body. I said, right. But do you think we come through the assembly line from wherever we come from, however we get here? Do you think we get to pick what parts we want? Like, I'll take the extra breast, I'll take the extra leg, I'll take the extra lip. In your cases, I'll take no lip. Like,
Yeah.
we don't get to decide how we come. And the men in the room said, I would just do something about that. And I said, well, you control her salary. Are you going to give her some more money in salary to be able to do something about that if she wanted to do something about that? Because if the answer to that is no, I don't know what you think she should do about that. And why do
Right.
you think she would want to do something about her body? And I think because, we see this now with a lot of white people and a lot of white women especially, there's so much modifications that they do to their own bodies that they can't imagine that we as Black women could literally just be happy in our bodies, because so many of them aren't happy in their body. In fact, one of the white women that was in that meeting that made the comment was literally in the office on a starvation diet to lose weight.
The level of confidence that we have, I think, is very intimidating. Yeah, that, because none of my Black, I mean, I'm of a particular age. I'm not sure how old you are, but we're at that point, I am, that, everybody's starting to do things.
Yeah,
And none of my
I'm not
Black girlfriends are doing anything.
anything. And I think the comments on that Black woman's body, again, because I think a lot of white women exist in bodies they're not happy with. So the concept that you could be happy in a body that they don't deem as beautiful, they just can't wrap their minds around that, because how are you happy in that body? That body I would never want. But you seem to be happy in it. You seem to exist in it in the fullness of it. Something I myself could never do. In fact, I am coming into work every day and drinking broth to shift my body, change my body. And you're just walking around happy in yours.
Yeah. Like I said, the confidence sometimes is maddening.
And even if Black women don't have confidence, because sometimes you don't really know
Yeah.
how anybody feels about
No.
anything. Even if they don't feel good about their body, I think Black women walk with a stride that's different in the world, right? And I think some of the stride that we walk with is our own kind of armor that we go out into the world with, right? And so the person reading that can read that as confidence, can read that as strength, can read that as strong. All the while, I'm in my head thinking, I hate my legs, I hate my thighs. I could be having all of
Sure.
these conversations about myself, but the stride by which Black women go out into the world. And part of that is because we go out into a world that has already discredited us before they've gotten any chance to get to know us. And so I think part of the confidence you see in Black women, or the perceived confidence that Black women walk out into the world with, is because we're walking out into a world that inherently hates us.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So tell us how it ended. Like, how much longer did you stay? Did you leave soon after that, or what happened?
I stayed an additional 6 months, and I stayed because a part of me, and this is something else that Black women do, and so whatever your coffee and cream moment is, you have to decide to save yourself. Because I stayed longer because I was responsible for other Black women. I
Sure.
was responsible for whether or not they were going to get the raises they actually deserved, right? I was responsible for their career development. I was responsible for their emotional safety in the workplace. And so for 6 months, I was acting like this guard and shield until just one day I remember coming in, and what had started off with these white women kind of just doing the sabotage behind the scenes was this outright shutting me out. And I remember saying, I don't like this feeling because I don't have to have this feeling.
In
And
what
so,
way, though? Like, you said that there were rumors about your work had elevated up to the C-suite level. In what way were you being shut out?
so I was being shut out of decision making in their department that directly impacted my own. So there were things I needed to know. So I needed to know if the pharmacy made any change that was going to impact the intake process. And I wasn't being told that. And so then we would be doing a process that was no longer relevant to the change that had happened downstairs. And so then it became this thing like, well, your department did this and your people, we did not know. Right. And so it was a lot of that happening. Like, oh, I thought I put you on that meeting. Okay, then so and so is going to send you, just a summary of what was discussed and all the changes. And a summary would come, but some of the change, like things would be missing out of that summary, right?
Right.
And so it was a lot of that. And so I was having to defend my work, but also defend these Black women because they were doing the work
Right.
that was now being said wasn't being done right. And so that started, and we would have these, in the morning you'd meet in the break room for coffee, or we would sit in each other's office, or people would come up, and all of a sudden they stopped coming up to my office. And if I went down to their office, it was always something quick. Whereas before, we could be in there talking about work and then shooting the shit for a good 20 minutes before we had to get back to work. And the time just kept getting shorter, and the conversations kept getting shorter. And I was like, okay, what are we doing here?
Right.
What are we doing? Because I'm just of the volition that I will just never allow people who the sun fights with every day to make me feel unworthy to be in spaces that my work has earned me to be in.
Not who the sun fights with every day.
So I just wasn't going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not, I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't need that from anybody. I don't need to know the value of my work and my brain and all of it. I can go out and do this on my own. And that last role was the catalyst for why I am here.
Okay, let's talk about that, because that is the pivot I think a lot of us are headed toward, whether we intended to pivot that direction or not, right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of my viewers are asking for how to do that.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about how you pivoted, what you did, all of that?
Yeah. So when I decided to leave, I had something that, I don't know that everybody's going to have right out the gate. So what I had was the white woman for whom they were doing their own thing with, right? Because I say this all the time in my content, and I say this, that if you're a white person with empathy, you're not going to do well in white spaces. You're just not. Like, it requires you to be ruthless, calculating, and the only way you can truly be that way is you have to discard your empathy. And so when I made the decision to leave, the white woman, she was the VP of ops at the time. She was also making the decision to leave because they were doing her worse than they were doing me, if you could believe that. And so she left, I think she left maybe a week or two before me. And then I left, and she called me and she said, I saw what you did with that department. I saw what you did within the company. It was nothing short of miraculous, and you should definitely do this for other companies. You should do this work. And I said, well, yeah, I'm thinking about that. I quit. I quit without a plan. I didn't have another job. So I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do that. And she said, if you do that, I'm happy to partner with you. And we started the consultancy together. And, not for nothing, she was a white woman who had been in C-suite level position. And so she had her own ability to get us access into, different groups and different partners. Funny enough, our first client was the private equity partners that owned the company we both just quit from.
Wow.
Right? And so having that kind of launched the first 2-3 years of business. And then she was a pharmacist by trade. She wanted to kind of go back into pharmacy, and so she exited the business. And that's when I got approached. Believe it or not, the director for the federal government found me on TikTok.
Wow.
And
See?
yeah, she found me on TikTok, and that December, I signed on. She signed on with me, and we kind of got a contract going, and I had steady work for a very long time. And so what I had in terms of being able to pivot right at the beginning was she leveraged her white privilege to kind of get us in spaces and get us in contracts that I don't know if it would have been as easy when I first started out by myself. That's just the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
Um, and now with myself being the primary consultant and what has happened in terms of DEI and all the other things, one of the pivots that I did was in that downtime, I just started to write. I wrote what I knew. I wrote what I talk about, and that's empathy and the intersection of race in relation to empathy. And so I've been making that pivot. And ironically, I've had clients find me on TikTok. Those people who watch my TikTok and say, "Hey, can you come into my company? Can I book some time with you?" And
Right.
so the pivot is happening, and I think one of the things that has sustained me throughout this year, because it's hard for a lot of us as Black women, like um, in February, right before my birthday, I totaled my car.
Mm.
And a month after totaling my car, I had applied the end of the last year for a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And I promise you it saved me. I think as Black people, I think we're highly spiritual people that have been hijacked by religion. I'll say that. I'll leave that there. I think
Yeah.
I think Black people are highly spiritual people who've been hijacked by religion. And so going away for 10 days, you're not talking to anybody, no phone, no diary, no journal, no nothing. I mean, talk about being alone with your mind and your thoughts and yourself. And one of the things that I learned in those 10 days is that things are always changing. Even when you don't see it, even when you don't feel it, things are always changing. And so when I have times like, okay, what is going to happen next, like I'm doing this work, because a lot of us who are pivoting, especially as Black women, you're building behind the scenes, you're applying for jobs, you're at 200, 300, 400 applications going out. You've pitched to so many companies about your idea, you've pitched to the public about your product, and it can feel like nothing is moving, but energy is always in motion.
Yeah.
Always something is always changing, something is always pivoting. You talked about, like, when you first started this podcast, and you was like, I have this many subscribers because things are always changing. And so the pivot for me was, okay, I don't have any work, what I'm going to do? I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I started writing. I started promoting my book and talking about my book, and that has opened up so many different opportunities in that pivot. And so I the pivot isn't easy, but it's necessary. And I would say the biggest thing towards the pivot is quieting yourself and getting back to who you are.
It's so true. I did a a podcast talking about it's our pivot season. And one of the things that we need to do is to find that creative outlet,
Yes.
because
Yes.
to me, I feel like that's the best medicine
Yes.
there is.
Yes.
I have worked in, I guess, corporate. I worked in advertising. I have been laid off, let go. I had a clothing line business that I ran out of money. I have been bankrupt. I have been foreclosed on, right?
Yeah.
This is if you count the podcast, technically my third business. So, and in each of these, especially my business, The Rebel Geek, where I'm a web consultant, that came out of a creative idea that I dreamt about. And I did that when I was not doing anything, and then
When
made
there's
hundreds
nothing.
of thousands. Yes. And made hundreds of thousands of dollars. People are like, well, how do you figure out, how do you just go into something creative. You said you write this
I write.
podcast.
Yeah.
This podcast, I just started the podcast in May. We're almost at 9,000 subscribers on YouTube at the time of this recording. In 7 months, people are on YouTube for a year and don't have 1,000. So there's a space, but this is just a way for me to, I've been through some stuff, and this is just something that came to me. So being able to put the podcast together and send out a newsletter for me, not my white client,
Yeah.
being able to create a membership portal for me, not my client. All of the creativity, the developing of the logos and all of the things, the music at the beginning of the videos, all of this is creative for me, and it could very well end up being my main hustle.
Yeah.
It would be great, because when I look back and I connect the dots of everything that I've ever done, they all lead me here. Everything I've ever done. Yeah.
That's how I feel about the book. I feel like
Yes.
all of my work led me there, right? And the thing about this book, can I tell
Bring
you how
it forward so people can see, can you?
the thing about this book, can I tell you how this book came to be?
Please.
I was on TikTok, and this was right around the time where there was all this conversation about there was a bunch of leftist TikToks or liberal TikToks, and they were going to follow Charlie Kirk around and debate him. And I forgot what the name they had for it, but they were going to go follow Charlie Kirk to all the different campuses that he was going to go to and debate him. And before they even got to the first campus, there was all of this conversations and allegations of racism and prejudice from all the other Black content creators who were supposed to be going on this tour with them. It was called the Un-F America Tour. That's what it was. And so they were going to go follow Charlie Kirk around and debate him on the liberal issues. And it was majority ran by these young white liberal content creators and a few Black content creators who were supposed to be going. And before they got to the first campus, it was all this conversation about racism and how the Black content creators were not considered. They were their trips to go out was not paid. It literally blew up before it even started. And what was fascinating to me was when they announced this tour, the amount of people on TikTok that gave these white folks thousands of dollars to go do this tour. And before they even got out the gate, all this allegations of racism. And as the stories was coming out, I was watching it. And I was thinking about the 15 tenets of white supremacy, the ones that people quote all the time, right to comfort and all this other stuff. And I said, what would 15 tenets of white supremacy look like in relation to empathy? How would that show up? Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, I think you know how that would show up, Tammy. So I just started going over my notes, and I pulled these themes out from my training, from my consultations, from the videos I had been doing on TikTok, and came up with these 15 things around how empathy and white supremacy intersect and what that would look like in the behaviors of white people. And so then I just took those 15 things and I just wrote. The chapters are written like standalone, like they don't follow anything. And I just started to write okay, so if I wanted to say one of the things, so emotional invalidation, right? Because there was so much of that happening in the discussion. Like the white content creators was invalidating the emotions of the Black content creators and how their actions impacted them. And I'm like, well, yeah, they invalidate your emotions. You're too sensitive. You're too this. You're too that. I didn't mean that. The disconnection from impact, meaning that they can impact you in the most fundamental way. And because they didn't intend to do it, they just disconnect from the impact. Like you're on the ground bleeding and they're standing over there thinking, well, that was never my intention.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so I just started to get these things, and I just started to write the chapters as kind of like a letter to how this shows up in the world. And I looked up and I had 15 things written. And then, of course, you have to edit and add and take away and add context. And I was like, but I don't want to leave it on 15. I want to do other things in the book. And at the time, I didn't know it was a book. I was just kind of writing.
Right.
And I'm like, but if I was going to do this, what do I want to say? And so then chapter 16 became an invitation to white people to the work of empathy.
So how's that going?
The book is going really, really, really well. It's funny because when I wrote it, I was like, I'm going to write it. I'm going to, promote it on TikTok to my audience, for the people who follow me already, right? Who know about me, so they'll go get the book. And somebody had asked me, he said, well, okay, so how's the book doing? And I'm like, I actually hadn't even looked at the numbers, if I'm going to be honest with you. I said, because, to your point, it was a creative outlet. I did it. I put it out there. I wanted it to do well, but I wasn't terribly tied to it to do. I wanted to do what it was going to do. So he was a white conservative guy. For them, it's all about numbers.
Sure.
So he got online and he said, okay, so I looked at the numbers and it says for independent authors, because I did the book independently, that within the first year, if you're good, you sell about 300 to 400 books. Really, really good, you probably sell about 500. And then 1,000 books over the life of the time that you publish. And so I think the book had been out at that time maybe 3 months. And so I just kind of went and looked at my numbers. And by the 3-month mark, it was already at 450 books sold.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's every month it's been doing. 1 month, I looked at my analytics because I had just not been paying attention because I just was doing other things. 1 month, I had almost sold 100 books in that month. And I was like, well, what was going on in that month? I wasn't talking more. I don't know. I haven't figured out what was the rhythm in that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like you. I just started to write and I just started to put it out. I think particularly for Black women, especially those of us who are in the middle of the pivot, we can get stuck in perfectionism.
Oh, for sure.
It's not perfect because we've told ourselves that we have to be perfect all the time. And so if it's not perfect, then I'm not going to put it out. And I struggled and I was like, I'm struggling that right now with my second book because I'm writing a book about how religion robbed me of empathy and how it robs a lot of us. And I think I'm struggling a little bit with the perfectionism around that book because unlike this is very academic for me.
Right.
Whereas that book is deeply personal for me because, walking away from religion, particularly as a Black person, is traumatic, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a loss of faith. It is a loss of community for a lot of us. And so I think we don't often talk about it because it just reminds you how much religion has taken from you in terms of time, resources, energy, money, poured into this thing, and you look back and there's a sadness to that, but also what it takes from you in terms of community.
So many creators, Black female creators that I've been watching recently, I think are having the same epiphany about religion. It's funny because my best friend and I we're trying. We've gotten off track and we haven't even gotten anywhere to do a Bible study because we've been trying to do this Bible study for a long time. And so we come back together to have these discussions about said chapters, and it's just not your regular Bible study. It's very, inquisitive. Well, what is this? A man wrote this. Obviously, this is it. That's the conversation.
Yeah.
And I haven't walked away. I definitely am a believer, but it just looks different than
that's how it starts.
Yeah. I know. I feel like you're right. I know.
That's how it starts. And it's so funny because I find the people, those of us who have walked away from religion, we're deeply devoted.
Yeah.
Right? And so the things that gets thrown at us is, well, you didn't really, I'm like, listen, I was at church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Tuesday Bible study, Tuesday night prayer, Thursday night Bible study. When the church called for shut-ins, where you stayed in the church all night, you slept you took your pillows and your blankets and you just tarried, that's what we come from. We weren't your typical Sunday church goers where you go on Sunday and you go on Christmas. the people that I have found in terms of, especially when I see black people, it's almost like, they say an angel gets his wing. I'm like, an angel got his wing. Another black person got free of this. I don't know. But there's something when I find these people, I'm like, we were more devout to this religion than the people who throw the stones at us and say, well, you weren't really saved. And part of like that waking up is you start to question. And one of the things that I was like, man, I would have billed myself to anybody as a very critical thinker. Mm-hmm. And now when I look back at what I believed, I went, how were you able to disconnect your brain from this very obvious thing to still believe this thing, right?
Right.
And so I and you've been on my page, and I talk about like the way that white people have this cognitive dissonance around race. Black people have that with religion. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have it with religion, and I think it's why on my platform I talk about white people and empathy, and I get a lot of pushback from black people. And they say things like, these people could never have any empathy. They're just blah, 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 blah. And I say to them, what you're saying about them, you wouldn't accept anybody saying that about you. Because me as a non-believer say, y'all will never change either. Like, where was this God for 400 years of slavery? You dismissed. I said, you just have cognitive dissonance about different things, but it functions the same way.
I find it interesting because I feel a lot of, and I know there's the empathy, is it a quiz or something like that?
Yeah, it's a scorecard, yes.
Yeah, the scorecard. And I feel like, a lot of black women, especially in the past year, have just said, I'm not trying to like educate you guys or anything like that, walked away from it. But I feel like your content, when you do attempt to educate, it's coming from a very pure place. Because I've said things on the channel, like, obviously there's some lovely white people.
Obviously.
If there was not, we would not even be where we are right now.
Correct.
And people are like, they're not lovely. Don't say that. Okay. So I believe, some white people for real want to know. They want to learn. They really are interested. And you can quickly decipher those who do and those who don't.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly. They're easy to identify.
Yeah. So I like when you break down kind of, you're really trying to explain and help them. And that is what you are to do. I couldn't do it. A lot of my friends, even with this podcast, people are, they're learning things about me because it's not something that we really talk about. Really, girl, I've known you for 25 years, but why would I ever talk about this with you? And, just recently one of them did something and I was like, there it is. There's the privilege, very liberal, left leaning, but,
I will contend, I find them to be the worst.
They are.
And I've said that a lot of times on my platform, that I would soon rather sit across the table with a conservative white woman than a liberal one, because it has been my experience that conservatives, because they lack that empathy piece the most, and part of not having that is they lack shame, a lot of them. Right? Like they don't have the shame to say what they really believe, right? Even as you're sitting there and it's the most offensive thing that can fall out of their mouth, they don't have the empathy to understand that, oh, I shouldn't say that. And because they don't have that, they don't have the shame. But the benefit of that is you know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
You know what it is with this person right at the gate. Whereas liberals walk around with all this shame. And so because they walk around with so much shame, they don't often tell the truth about what they feel and what they believe. And it takes moments of, oh, there's that, okay, there's that thing. And to call them out on that thing, they fall apart. They just break down on you.
Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of Black people just don't ever call them out. They don't want to deal with the emotional fallout of their friends. And sometimes friends they love. These are people they love. These are people they know, right? Like there's affection for the person on the other side of this. And because, again, they're living through their own cognitive dissonance and their own shame around, and I don't do well with white people who say, anytime a white person says, I just feel so much shame, I move away from them. Because
talk about it. Yeah.
You're going to make me carry that shame with you. And that's not my burden. And what are you shame about, right? Like, I don't hold shame for the Black women who weren't good mothers to their children, right? Like when Black women talk about growing up sometimes and having mothers who were jealous of them and mothers who were in competition with them, the pedophiles that the Black families protect, I don't walk around with that shame because I am aware of what has happened with us as Black people in the community, the secrets we hold, the terrible things we do. But I don't walk around with that shame because that's not how I engage with my children and the Black people around me, right? So I don't walk around with that shame, but I do walk around with the awareness. And white people don't know how to walk around with the awareness and not the shame. And so because they are constantly in a state of shame, when you're friends with them, they make you carry that bag with them. And so then you have to constantly be monitoring how you say it, why you say it, when you say it. And I'm just like, the minute somebody says, oh, I'm so shameful. Oh, I already know. You want me and you to carry this. And I can't do that weight with you.
Interesting perspective. I never even thought about it.
Yeah, me and you are not going to hold hands with this shame. Because as the Black friend, you will be holding hands with them in that shame. Because you're going to constantly be managing that shame in terms of the truth you tell them.
So, Tammy, what do we do, as Black women? Because, like we talked about, we're in this pivot season. And I'm just interested to hear your perspective on how you feel Black women in America and the world, because I have people, all over, move forward right now during this time. What is your recommendation as somebody, and you can share what you're doing too as part of the 300,000, because I think a lot of us are looking for answers. This is tough because, we have been raised up, okay, to do all of the things that Black women have done, which is go to school, get all the degrees, over degree ourselves, over degree and over certify. Okay?
Black women are OD'd on degrees and certification. Now the certification that I did go and get, and it has been so useful for me, was the Lean Six Sigma Black Belt certification. Okay. And I find that helpful because it's about processes and procedures. So it functions in terms of my consultancy, and it helps me kind of organize my life, right? So I think if you got a degree or a certification that not just benefits you in terms of your career, but it benefits you in your life. You can put things in bucket and processes. Yeah, but I just think Black women get bored and they go to school. They get bored.
I was having a conversation with somebody recently, didn't even know they were a PhD. Like, had them on the podcast with PhDs. Everybody was a PhD. I thought, but me. Well, I wasn't. Me and this person. And I found out later, I didn't realize she had a PhD. And she's like, she said, I think that all this education with Black women is a trauma response.
Okay. She's not lying. And yeah. I it's funny because this is a tricky conversation to have, because Black women are so incredibly proud of their accomplishments.
Oh yeah.
And when you try to have the conversation about what it is, especially if you don't have the thing they have, they can hear it in a way that you're not saying it, right? So I did 3 years of college. I came to the US and I was going to go to school to be a nurse. And I made it to clinicals, right? Which is like the last year of blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you don't know this until you get there, but I don't like the way people smell.
I could never be a nurse.
And I remember she goes, "You're at clinicals." I said, "I don't give a damn. I don't like bodily functions and smells. Like, and like the part, like it would crush me to go into a patient's room who is in need of medical care, and I'm just gagging from smells and odors. And I'm like, I would never do that because that's the last place you need to experience feeling shame, blah, blah. I'm like, so, you know, she's like, but it's 3. I said, girl, you can take them 3 years and you can do what you want with them. I'm not doing it. Right. And so then I was like, okay, so what do I do? What do I do? And I'm like, because, and being from a Caribbean household, like Caribbean parents will tell you law and healthcare, it is like the benchmark. Like they tell you go to healthcare. So I'm like, okay. So I started doing nurse staffing. So I couldn't be a nurse. So I staffed them. I put them all over the country.
Okay.
And I don't know why, but it was almost like this thing. And I was fortunate because my parents were able to pay for my education. So I didn't get student loans and I didn't have any debt.
Me too.
None of those things, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I could see the trap being set for Black women and Black people.
I just said it was a trap.
I could see
said it.
I could see the debt trap that was being set. And every time somebody be like, well, you should go back. And I'm like, if I go back, I'm going to have to get loans.
Yeah.
I'm married now. I have kids, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so I was working jobs where like you could do some college, but I knew I wasn't going to be there long enough for this to benefit me. And I knew it was a debt trap being set for us to enslave us into debt. And so the first thing was to tell us that we were not as smart, not as capable, and we needed all of these things. Even though we could look around in the companies we worked for and find that that was not true. Our bosses were high school diploma people. Our bosses were people who had maybe associate's degree, right? Maybe a bachelor's, right? And I was just like, that's not true. This is a trap, right? So if I could get you to not think you are capable of doing what everybody else in the world has ever done, right? Like, you know, and it's all of these billionaires that drop out. And I'm like, they don't go back and get those degrees because they need them. They go back as something to put on the wall. It doesn't merit, you know, their worth or their value. And I was like, this is a debt trap for us.
Mm-hmm. But one could argue, I'm not arguing this, but one could argue that, well, they're white men. They don't need to. Like, we're not afforded the same allowances as them. So why we need a degree?
Can I tell you, the thing that makes people succeed in this world is audacity.
Absolutely.
Right? And Black women talk themselves out of audacity while we report the stories of all the white audacity we see around us. Who was the young lady? She went to prison who convinced all those people that she was a billionaire as well. Anna,
White girl.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You could look at this woman and see that she didn't come from that class. But what she had was the audacity to go into those spaces. So much so that she convinced people who should be able to spot money a mile away that was not able to spot the money a mile away. And so when I talk about empathy, right? Like when I developed the empathy scorecard, that was really around white folks, right? Like you need to understand what empathy is in practice. It's not this woo, woo, woo feeling. It is about the behaviors that you engage in that let somebody know on the other side of a conversation with you, encounter with you, whether or not you actually have empathy, right? So the scorecard was kind of designed around helping more white people. All people could use it, don't get me wrong, but they were a top of mind. And as that scorecard started to do its thing and people got on TikTok and they talked about it and blah, 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 there was like this running theme. And I was just like, with Black women, I said, the thing that Black women struggle with the most, and this is why we keep telling ourselves we need these degrees, but we need it. It's because Black women really struggle with their own self-empathy.
No. Okay.
Black
Expound.
women, Black women give themselves no grace. No grace to be human, no grace to fail, no grace to feel. And if you go out into the world with no empathy for oneself, you will believe every lie that other Black women say out loud, that the messaging of everybody else. It's nothing but audacity that has me here as a college dropout, and I don't even pretend that's not the case, right?
Right.
It's nothing but audacity to have me here as a college dropout who have excelled in her career to C-suite level, right? To having my own business, to writing my own book, and to speaking on topics with authority and expertise, because I've spent so much time like the thing that makes anybody an expert is how much hours and time they commit to a topic or a subject. That's all it is, right? And I just walk around the world with the same audacity as the people who have a tenth of my charm, charisma, intelligence, or brains. And so when I was developing the self-empathy scorecard, there's a section on there about self-talk. There's a Black woman that follows me. And to this day, I think about her constantly. She's a nurse practitioner, smart, intelligent, just very Christian, the kindest, like, you know how you see people across the screen and like their energy just flows. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So she downloaded my self-empathy scorecard. She said, well, I woke up that morning. She said, well, I'll just do it over coffee, because she just thought it was like a fun personality test. And she said, she stopped and she got on TikTok. She says, oh, you can't just do this over coffee. Oh, you want us to sit with ourselves. You're asking us to look at her. Yeah. And she said, I was reading some of the questions and I said, people do that? So on the self-talk question, what do you say to yourself when something fails? And I have all these different answers. And she goes, I was looking at the answers and she goes, people do that? People say that? Like, people talk nicely? Like, she was like, I remember thinking, oh, this is going to be quick. This is a little fun little quiz. Yeah. She goes, and I started to do it. And she goes, I couldn't get through it. So she comes on TikTok. She turns on her camera. And then she said, I called my brother. She said, the score, it impacted me so much. I called my brother. And I was telling my brother. And he said, well, don't send that shit to me. Because I ask you to look at yourself. I ask you to look at yourself. I don't think Black women will be successful in the pivot until they can look at themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the truth. If you're asking me, how do Black women pivot in this time? Because what you will do, you will just pivot to another hustle and deny your humanness, right? Because all the system tells us you got to work, you got to output, you got to make money. And I get it because, listen, the lights got to get on, right? Like, we get it, but I understand that. But I don't think you'll really be successful in the pivot until you can look at yourself.
And that's a muscle. That's something. And I haven't done this, so I need to do the scorecard myself. And just listening to you talk, because it's just, if I would have, because I've gotten myself so far through therapy, which I want to talk to you about, because we kind of touched on it when we spoke before, and gotten myself to a certain part, because for years I didn't have a therapist. I've only had a therapist for so many months. I've got myself to a certain place, right? Maybe due to age. I talk about when I left my job when I was working in advertising, and I dealt with a lot of professional self-worth issues. I allowed these people to get into my head, and I went on to have this clothing line. And then when the clothing line was no more, and I'm sitting there thinking, I wish I had a trade. I wish I was a plumber or a carpenter. I could do HVAC work, because I didn't know how to put myself forward without going back into an organization, a company, which I definitely did not want to do. I didn't know, like, what can I say I do? I do client services. I do brand management for,
Yeah.
these big, packaged goods companies. It was just utter and complete bullshit. And I think a lot of times we're talking about degrees with Black women, but we get ourselves up to the position because we're in the position and we do this task and this task and this, we do all the things. This is in a bubble of a position, which is in the bubble of a bigger organization. It's some made up shit of a job that somebody came up with that didn't have shit to do with me. Right.
Correct.
So when we get kicked out of these jobs, when we're losing our jobs, all we know is I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. And it's very hard for us to figure out how we're going to make it in the world because we've reduced ourselves down.
Correct.
To a thing. Yeah. To a job that wasn't considering us, didn't have us in mind, to a job. So
and I always say Black people, I mean, if we're just going to be completely honest here, a lot of what we do is to stunt on other Black people.
Oh, for sure.
Because the same Black people that will tell you about their master's, their PhD, their doctorate, their whatever. And again, I'm not taking from anybody's accomplishments, right? They'll tell you all of that, and then the next person say, well, these white people don't give a damn about it no way, because they'll still hire their high school, blah, blah, blah. Right. Okay. So if you know that, then who are you doing all of this for? Because you can't say in one breath that you have to do it because you need it, and then say in the next breath, you don't know why you did it because they don't respect it anyway. Then who is it for?
Well, they don't trust themselves to have their own thing. They don't think that they can have their own thing.
They can't build their own thing. They can't make their own thing.
The community to have their backs and hold them in our own thing. So they're relying on, they're saying that, but it's bullshit. But yes, stunting on each other. I watched a girl, I don't know if you saw this. I don't know who this girl was, little young girl. She's like 29. She's an attorney. Bravo. Like, if you're going to be an attorney or a doctor, obviously, you know what I'm saying? If you need to be a project manager and they require said certification or nurse,
obviously.
Anything like that, obviously, right?
Correct.
But I just didn't like the way that she was talking because she was saying who and who wasn't her peer,
Everybody's
because she has her degree. These people aren't your peers. They're not my peers just because they're on, social media. And I was just like, girl, when you get to a older age and you get out here and you really figure out what's going on, you're going to be embarrassed.
Because the people she consider her peers don't consider her their peers.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the tragedy of it. So when we do these things in relation to other Black people that we say are not our peers, the people that we believe to be our peers, which are other very elitist Black people or white people, sometimes don't even consider you their peers.
Yeah, they're not even considering you.
You're not their peer, and it could be for a myriad of reasons, right? So you could not be their peer because you weren't born into money. You could not be their peer because you didn't go to the right Ivy League school. You could not be their peer because your body is a bit thicker than the girls who have thinner. Like it's just all it's all nonsense. It's all made up, and it's why I've been talking to Black women for the last year, like, go get yourself empathy scorecard and sit with the questions. Sit with the questions. Don't rush through them. Sit with them.
Right.
Answer them for real, right? Because I think when we give ourselves empathy, then we know that the only person that we have to be valid for is ourselves.
Yeah.
And what anybody thinks about me outside of me, it doesn't penetrate. It doesn't penetrate. And I think that's evident in some of us who actually are on social media, whether you are doing TikTok or whether you're doing YouTube, right? Because I have no idea who is going to see my video and what response it's going to elicit in that person, and yet I do it anyway. Why? Because I have validated me to me. I know that when I put out content, it is with the intention for the greater good of all, who sees it and who engages with it. And although my conversations are direct and frank, what people cannot say if they truly watch my content is that even when I'm direct or frank, there is malice behind what I say.
So after we do the empathy scorecard, I'm just saying, what do you recommend? I mean, what is your, I'm curious, because what is your plan? And I know you're already in motion. You're doing shit. You got your book, people are finding you, wanting you to speak, doing all the things. But so many Black women have been caught off guard. They've done all the things. They're not anywhere close to where you are in the
They've
stage
done
of.
all the things they were told they needed to do.
Absolutely.
They haven't done any of the things that they have sat with themselves and felt called to do.
Yeah.
And that's a different thing, right?
Totally.
So there's a lot of Black women doing all the things that they were told to do. None of the things they have felt called to do. And sometimes the thing that you've been called to do is not going to yield you the quickest return.
Yeah.
It's just not, right? I wish I could be on your podcast and say, oh my God, Erin, I've been called to do these scorecards and they have hit 1 million downloads.
Yeah.
I wish I could be on your podcast right now saying I sold 1 million copies of that wonderful book. Sometimes the thing that you are called to do is not going to produce for you right away your biggest yield. And because we are in a culture and in a society that tells us we are only worthy by our output and what we can show the world to be our output, then we think we're not doing something. Every day I get up and I feel just as accomplished, just as assured. And the only thing that I did different, honest to God, I was thinking about this. I was saying this to my friend yesterday, Steve. I can't really tell you, if I'm going to be, I can't tell you how I survived this whole year.
I understand you 1,000% on that.
I
understand.
Because if you looked at my bank account, there were not this huge influx of revenue this year.
Mine either.
I said to Steve, I don't know how I couldn't put into words how I survived it. And yet, through this year, there was no drop in how I showed up to my work, right? There was no drop in how I showed up to the thing that I was called to do. No, somebody said to me on TikTok, they go, like, I know your business, most of it went away at the beginning of the year, but when I come across your TikToks, it's not evident to me. I don't see it.
You look together every single time. Like, you show up and do what you need to do.
And I'm like, and I'm not performing. Like I'm literally in my body. I am in my element. I'm in my space. And so when you do your scorecard and you're sitting with yourself, the last area on that self-empathy scorecard is intuition. Because I am of the contention that religion has robbed a lot of us of our natural intuition, our natural ability to listen to ourselves and then trust that. We have been conditioned to believe that the thing that we want to do or need to do may be demonic. It may be the devil leading us astray. It may blah, blah, blah. And so it's made a lot of us afraid to even trust our own voices.
Yeah.
We've assigned our voice, what I call the God voice. We've assigned that. We've given that over to something else, something demonic, something blah, 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 blah. And so for a lot of Black women, when you do the empathy scorecard, I leave you with intuition. Do you truly trust it? Do you listen to it?
And my question, and I know we talked about this a little bit when we talked on the Zoom prior to this, when we were talking about therapy. I just wanted you to talk about your view on it, because it's different. It's not, but when you said it, I'm like, yeah, that's how I was operating for many years. And I did have a therapist, I guess, have had, who I felt was very helpful for me to kind of have some, she's a Black woman, you know, but she was also into some other stuff, right? She wasn't, you know, a typical therapist. She was into like her religion. I don't believe she's a Christian. It was rooted in African
Spirituality.
religion. Yes. I mean, even one day she told me the ancestors were behind me. I was like, what? I'm sorry. You know, and she said some stuff, and I was just like, okay, you know, because I'm one of those people, I don't mess around with that kind of stuff, right? You know, I don't, you know, like my friend one time wanted to, my California friends, that's all I need to say, wanted to have the Long Island medium come, and we all were going to chip in. I wasn't. I said, I don't need to chip in. I don't need to talk to my dead loved ones, if that's who I would really be talking to. But I always said, you know, if somebody's walking by me on the street and they walked by me and said something like, oh, your mother said such and such, I'd be like, oh. And it was something that only my mother would know, I would receive that. But I'm never going to look for that.
Okay. So what I feel about therapy, the reason why I'm not a big fan of therapy, especially therapy within the context of the United States, because all of it is rooted in racism. Right? Like, a lot of Black people don't even know. Like, the first diagnosis in therapy was drapetomania. And drapetomania was that Black people were crazy because they wanted to be free.
Oh, this is news to me. Keep going.
That's foundational to therapy. So we start with the first diagnosis within this therapy field, drapetomania, that the Black people who was running away from the plantations were crazy for wanting to be free. And this is the foundation for which all therapy is built, right? Like all of the DSM. Now, I've said this, and, you know, I've had a few white folks agree with this. I personally think, like, particularly for white people, and then I think we all get roped into this because we live in their world. This is their imagination. I think the major mental health crisis by which all other mental health crises are built out is whiteness.
Okay.
I believe that when you have to live in a state of constant, to some degree, permanent cognitive dissonance, that changes your brain. That is going to create some personality disorders. That's going to create some mania. That's going to create some schizophrenia, right? Like these things are going to happen because you are looking at a reality and everything is structured to tell you that that's not real.
Right.
Right?
Right.
In your reality, your white skin is superior, but you're standing next to Black people who literally, like, our cells get energized by the sun. It almost charges our body while it will kill yours. But you live in a society that tells you yours is superior to everybody else, right? You're looking around at the world and people who have Black bodies have a physical strength that is unmatched by any other group. But you have to tell yourself, well, that's not really true. So yeah, the mental illness, like your brain has to be in a constant state. And remember, these are the people responsible for all the diagnoses that exist.
Okay. This is so fascinating.
Can I trust these diagnoses?
Yeah. Yeah. Whew.
Because the rest of us that get kind of wrapped into this mental health stuff is because we're living in the imagination of the people suffering from the biggest mental health crisis. So yes, of course, some of us are going to experience fear and anxiety. Yes, some of us are going to experience depression, But that is a function of, because we're having to live in a society, in a world with the people with the mental health crisis, by which all these other mental health crises are birthed.
So talk about what you said to me about, because typically Black people they have a person that they talk to, like in the village, or what were you saying?
Yeah. So I saw this TikTok, and my God, I cannot find this TikTok. And I literally was thinking this the other day. I'm like, was I just meant to see this? Was I just meant to see this? Because I remember when I probably spent 2 years on TikTok doing all the different searches you can imagine, all the phrases trying to find this TikTok. So I'm watching TikTok one day, and this Black woman comes down, and she looks like she's South African, right? Like, she doesn't look like a Black American. She doesn't look like she's Caribbean. Not that she had she said, Black people, like, there were always healers in the village. We always had healers. But like everything that colonization does, it colonizes the healing, standardizes it, and then sells it back to us. But it has stripped it of its spiritual practice and function. You went to the healers in the village. The healers that when you walked in could see your spirit was heavy, your mind was racing, your body was ill. That we always had the healers. But when you have colonization that takes from all these other cultures, therapy and the mental health field did with healers what obstetrics did to Black women and nursing.
I was
right?
just thinking that, right?
Black women were the people who brought life in. We were the first OBGYNs, right? But whiteness has to come in and make themselves the authority on the thing that we had always been doing. And so now all of the OBGYNs, to the point that Black women were operated on without anesthesia, like treating our bodies like all the things. So the thing that we were always doing, which was bringing life into the world, taking care of pregnant women, bringing them through labor without all these, like, laying out, like, we didn't give births on our backs. We didn't do that. All of these new things were taken from white. Same is true with the mental health field. It took all the things that the healers knew, that the healers could see, and they just said, we're going to call them therapists and psychotherapists and blah, blah, blah. And so they just took something that was deeply spiritual and rooted in us and standardized it and then sold it back to us. And what is crazy about that is they ran out the healers because you can't profit from the healers. The healers aren't selling you, that they're just healing. Those are the people you sat down. So I grew up in the Bahamas, and my mother grew up on an island called Andros. Speaking of like the supernatural stuff, right? And where my mother grew up, it would be what America would call like the rural South. So the island was very rural. And I remember as a kid that we used to walk. So my aunt's house was maybe here. And then there was like these little bush and stuff like that. And I remember as a child, a house being off in the back, like in the bushes. And like this very, like when you looked in this woman's eyes, you just knew she was different. Like she was what we would call like voodoo or obeah, right? So she was always scary to me. And I was almost like I knew not to go to this woman's house, never to go to the bush, never blah. Right. And then my other cousin's house. And the last time I went back home, I said to my cousins, I go, whatever happened to that woman who used to live in the bush? Everybody said, what woman?
Wow.
And I said, the woman who had a house and we would never go. And they go, there was never a woman. There was never a house. Nobody ever lived there.
So there's no house.
There's no, and I'm like, I remember as a child seeing this woman, seeing the house, and like immediately knowing, like, oh, that's my cousins go, because my cousins live on the island. Like they go, we've lived here all our life. There has never been a woman, never been a house where you think a woman in a house was.
So who do you think it was?
I'm like getting like raising just even talking about it, because I try not to even think, because I'm like, who was that? What was that?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
but I do believe, particularly for African people and Black people, we always had the healers until we didn't have the healers anymore. And the fact that therapy, a lot of like the first kind of mental health diagnosis was drapetomania, which was Black people are crazy for wanting to be free. I think
Spell it for me, will you? I'm gonna put it on the screen.
Drapettomania.
Okay. Drapetomania was a fictional mental illness invented by Dr. Samuel Cartwright in 1851 to pathologize enslaved Black people's natural desire to escape bondage, framing running away as a disease rather than a rational response to oppression, with proposed cures like whipping and amputation, highlighting its role in justifying slavery. I have never heard of this until just now. I was pledging a sorority when I took Black History. I wasn't really zoned, you know. I just so
Yeah,
wow.
I read a
Okay,
lot. I read a lot. I study because I want to know what I'm talking about,
for
right?
sure.
Like I
I'm
want to
reading a
know.
lot more now. Like obviously,
Yeah,
because I want to know too, and I don't want to be ignorant. And I've had people I've asked the question about, well, we've tried to have conversation about things being rooted in slavery
yeah,
and
yeah.
why Black women, why we're like this with each other in the workplace. And I'm like, I don't have the exact reason, but I know it's rooted in slavery. I
It is.
know it is.
Can I tell you
Yes.
the theory of why I believe we are that way? It's the same reason why Black people are hard on their children, right? So I want you to imagine you have a child, right? Because they could just take your child and sell them off, right?
Sure.
So you have a child and the slave master noticed that your child is strong or your child is blah 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 blah. So he comes to Erin, you sure got a good boy. Then you like he ain't worth nothing. He's lazy, blah blah blah. So you would down talk that child because you didn't want that child sold.
I said that on my podcast, and somebody in the comments was so pissed. Like, well,
Yeah.
my mom was hard on us. You know what I'm
So
saying?
so that's where that being really hard, not praising your children
I
too
read
much
that. Yes,
because
because you
you
don't want the
wouldn't want
attention.
you didn't want the attention on your child. You didn't want them to see your child as smart. You didn't want them to see your child as strong. You didn't want them to see your child as resourceful because if they did, you could no longer see your child. So we still do that to this day. And I think the same is true for Black women. So let's just say it's me and you on the plantation on the field and all we got is each other.
Right.
They don't we can't show that I really like you and you really like me because part of slavery was not just about the physical labor, but the emotional torture of it too. Right? Like I think we think slavery was only about driving the bodies. But in order to drive the bodies, you have to capture people psychologically. You have to damage them here. You have to
So
damage them here.
correlate that with, okay, yes, we're openly disliking each other, but why are we so nasty to each other? Why are we really, I mean, just the way that we are with each other is horrible in many situations. So,
It's horrible, and you're probably not gonna like my answer either, right? Well, so I was seeing a therapist for a while too, around like separation, divorce with my kids and all the other things. And I used to complain all the time that my kids they get very, very lippy with me in a way that they didn't get with their father, right? And I remember my therapist saying to me, kids test the boundaries with the parent they feel the safest with. Because they know they can push with you and the response is not going to be to yell at them, to grade them, beat them, or whatever. So children learn to push boundaries with the people they feel safest with. So now you're the parent on the other side of that. You're like, okay, wonderful. I'm glad they feel safe, but this got to stop. And as my children have gotten older, I found that to be true. My children can have can have truthful conversations with me, and sometimes in a way that they still manage their dad's feelings and manage their dad's emotions, right? And I think some of that happens with us as Black women, right? Like, ultimately, I know I'm safe with a Black woman, even if I'm nasty to her. Mm-hmm. That's just the truth, right? Ultimately, if you put me in a room, even with a Black woman I was nasty with and a white woman, I know I'm still safer with that Black woman. There's something ancestral that connects us and ties us. And it's, it's not right. I'm not saying that this is okay, but I do believe we tend to be meaner and nastier because Black women walk around holding so much emotion in. Mm-hmm. So much emotion in. And our emotions are not safe in white spaces. Even the most vile of it, right? It's not safe in white spaces, but it's marginally safer in Black spaces, even when we're nasty to each other. If we're in a room with a bunch of Black women and a Black woman is acting up, there's going to be several responses to her acting up in that room. They're going to be the Black woman like, this is why I don't like to come to these places because blah, 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 blah. There's going to be some Black women that's going to want to mother her. There's going to be some Black women that's going to at least try to figure out what's going on with her, right? Yeah. All of us are Black women in this room, all these different responses. Now you take that Black woman, you put her in a room with white women, Hispanic women, Asian women, and all of that is happening. The likelihood of anybody from any other group seeing her, understanding that anger, understanding that rage, trying to calm her down, trying to comfort her, probably will not happen. What's going to happen is the cops are going to get called. And she's going to jail. Yeah. But if she's in a room with a bunch of Black women, the response could vary.
Yeah. I like this explanation. I never even thought about that.
And so I think we tend to be nastier with each other because we're at least safe, even when we're nasty.
That makes sense to me, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Wow. Okay. That makes sense to me. All right. Well, with that, I think we've had a really good conversation.
We did.
We did. I want to give you the opportunity to let people know where they can find you, where they can find the empathy scorecard, because I'm going to actually do it, and then maybe one day I'll have you back. We can have a conversation in a different direction. I didn't know it was going to go because I just enjoy watching you so much. I'm like, God, she is really all right.
Yes, once you do your self-empathy scorecard, I would love to come back. One of the ladies that follow me, she got the book, and she created a whole book club. And so I went into her community, and so many women showed up. So many Black women showed up to do like a book club with this book. One Black woman said to me, and I was like, "Are you serious?" I forgot the Andrew Lloyd. She's like, your book is up there. She goes, it's up there for me in terms of like writing a work. She goes, what's crazy about it is it's not a long book, but it's so like, she goes, you punch us in the face every few sentences.
You
like
you do it in your videos. I mean, so I can only imagine. It's just, it hits.
Hits. She's like, she goes, it's not a long book, but every chapter you get punched. And so that conversation we just had, like how you said, okay, why are we that, when you're like, okay, that makes sense. And she was like, I was constantly having those moments. And I think you can come to these conclusions about how people show up when you come to the conversation with empathy.
Well, I think that God, whoever your God is, whatever you believe, you've been put here to deliver and explain and represent in the way that you are. And I mean, this is powerful stuff, really, and, I know all the self-work that I've done to just get myself to where I am now. Like the self-worth issues I've had, I know are because of environments and situations that I was put in. Even when my parents put me in situations, they were trying to help, but as a result of, I have, childhood trauma.
to
things.
work through. It's funny because one of my friends, she is a coach. She's a life coach. She coaches Black women, specifically Black women.
Sure.
And she did my self-empathy scorecard. She said, "You know what it did for me?" She goes, "It highlighted for me how much work I've actually done." She goes, "The people that take your self-empathy scorecard, particularly the Black women," she goes, "there's going to be one or two responses to it. You're going to see in real time how much work you've actually done on yourself based on the way you answer the questions or how much work you need to do." And so my coach friend who coaches Black women specifically was like, "Yeah, this was good." I was like, if I hadn't done as much work as I had done, my scores would have been terrible. And she goes, "I just remember sitting there thinking, oh, you've done more than you realize," right? She goes, "Because when do you have time to really examine how much of your own work you've done? Where do you measure that? How do you measure that?" Right? And she goes, "So I was able to measure against that how much work I've actually done." And then the Black woman who's the nurse practitioner, who's in a field where empathy has to be abundant,
For sure.
where she's giving it out to these patients because she has the most beautiful spirit when you encounter her. She's giving it out to everybody. And she goes, and then I was like, I give none of that to me.
It took me so long to realize. And it's the perfectionist thing, because I did a video about we're just taught that we have to be better, we have to be perfect, we da-da-da-da. And I feel like we take that and we flip it around and we put that on other Black women. That's another reason why why are we so hard? But yeah, the way that I didn't realize how hard on myself I was. So now it's just like, and even on social media, when you first start, and I'm still a newbie, I'm still new. And, I've had, moments where I'm spiking and, oh my God, it's going so well. And then it's not, but it's going to be it's just going to be like that. Right.
I have never, believe this or not, you can scroll my page, child, if you have the time, because I do a lot of content. But if you scroll my page from the first video to now, you have never seen me post about, yay, I hit 10,000. Yay, I don't celebrate the numbers. Mm-hmm. It's just not important to me. And I remember when I was on LinkedIn before I got banned off of that platform.
Girl, what?
I got banned off of LinkedIn because I started talking about empathy at the very beginning of what was happening in Israel.
Uh-huh.
And LinkedIn is a business platform with a lot of Zionists. And so they started flagging my content. And I was just saying, we got to have empathy for all people. Right. That had to go. And so LinkedIn banned me. I wasn't, I was talking about everything the way that I talk about on TikTok. I was talking about race. I was talking about gender. I've been doing that for 2 years. Somehow amassed like 20,000 people following me on LinkedIn. When I broached that topic, I got banned.
Wow.
Off of LinkedIn. But one of the things that, like, when you do your work, like you go, I'm not as good as, I just don't pay attention to the numbers because it doesn't matter who's watching, because my position is this, and this has been my position. The people who's supposed to see my content will.
They will.
That's it. That's all. I ended up on the TEDx stage because somebody saw my content. I didn't do the typical, you go apply, you keep applying, you're hoping you get chosen. I did none of that. There was a woman who watched me on TikTok, and I'd shared somebody else's 2-second TEDx. And she commented, she said, "You need to be on the TEDx stage." And I just thought it was a sweet comment. And I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. And so then she found me on LinkedIn and she sent me a thing. She says, listen, she says, there's a TEDx happening in Eustis, Florida. Didn't even know where that was. Hadn't even heard of the place. So it's about 2 hours away from me. She says, you should come and just see how the sausage is made on putting together a TEDx talk. And so I took her up on it. I went up there and I met somebody else that was on my side of town. And I got an email saying, we'd love for you to apply to do a TEDx. And so I applied. What I didn't know then was I was basically selected. I just had to do the thing.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up on the TEDx stage, because somebody saw me on TikTok. I got the government contract because somebody saw me on TikTok. All of my work, so I don't celebrate numbers. It means nothing. I don't care if 20 people view my video or 20,000 people view my video. The people who were supposed to see me will.
I'm getting there. Like, at first, obviously, because you're just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, this is so. And then, yeah, I've had some really fascinating people connect and contact with me. Some opportunities present themselves. So it is exciting, and you're right. And I've gotten to meet like wonderful people like yourself, like just people that I would never interact with, and that's one thing I like to say, because somebody asked me last night, I did a live, and they're just like, well, I want to speak to Black women and da-da-da-da. I'm like, okay, well, you should just start that. Just go get on there and start speaking. What are you waiting on? You can do that, But we, to your point, you were talking about, the way we think about ourselves and the way we talk about ourselves.
Yeah.
It's just, we were raised different. We were.
Yeah.
And
we were.
Everything to do with it. And,
oh my God, that's a whole nother conversation. Because I say
gosh.
this, the Black people are going to get upset with me. So I don't even want to broach it, because I think in our effort to protect our children, we've damaged them too.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
we want to prepare them for the world that they're going out into, but we are the first people to tell our children something is wrong with them.
Yeah. I had great parents. My dad is still alive. Awesome. Amazing. Mom, awesome. But, my mom was hard. She was
So was my
hard.
mom. My mom was a very Christian woman, right? And so everything had to be done through that lens. And I remember I was 21. I was already married. I was 23. Sorry. I was already married. I had my first child. I was holding my second child. And I remember thinking, I am still making decisions about my life with her thoughts about my life as the backdrop to it. And I felt imprisoned by it. And I remember I'm like, I can't live for you. I can't make decisions based on whether or not you're going to approve, whether or not you're going to be upset. I'm like, I'm married. I have a husband. I have 2 children. And I am still, every decision is filtered through, is mom going to be upset about this? How will mom, and I felt so, because my mother was, she was Christian, and, that old school way of raising your children with respect and blah, blah, blah. And so you had to be respectful in how you dressed. You had to be respectful in how you carried yourself. Just all of that conditioning. And it's, again, I didn't get, because growing up in the Bahamas, it's a majority Black country, right?
Yeah.
So we never had to have conversations about Blackness, about my Blackness or my dark skin or anything like that. So I didn't get that kind of conditioning from my parents, but this idea of being godly and respectful was so incredibly important to me that I found myself giving people respect and deference that did not deserve it and should have never gotten it.
And it's so funny when you get to be a certain age, and it's just so easy. It's so easy to be like, girl, are you, and you see the younger girls and you want to just be like, you want them to know now what you know now. Yeah.
Yes.
But you can't, they got to go through it.
They got to go through it. And to be fair, there's a portion of us, particularly as Black women, who are saying, let the kids live, honey.
Yeah.
Girl, ain't nothing wrong with the twerk. Nobody's going to fall apart.
Oh, totally. I'm like,
nobody's going to fall apart because they saw your cleavage or your butt cheek, right? But like the world is not going to stop because that happens. So there's those of us who are saying, like, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah. But there's another portion of us who are echoing what our parents echoed, right? And so there's a lot of Black women like me, I'm in my 40s, I'm almost getting close to 50, that we were raised by the parents where respect was a big thing, and we still walk around with that. We still carry that. And some of us are still putting that on the next generation of young women. So when we see free women, we don't know what to do with them.
I just look at them and think, oh, I was there. I love it. I don't have kids. You know what I'm saying? So maybe I feel
so you were smarter than the rest of us.
So I'm learning,
So much smart. Listen. I've been trying to get my daughter to not want them, to not have them. And I said, and this is no shade to y'all, because y'all are my kids. Y'all are here because of me.
Yeah.
But I promise you, please don't. And I'm so happy because my daughter is doing so much more than I was doing at this age, right? Like, she is 20 years old. She's in FSU. She's going to college this summer. She's going to study abroad in Europe. Like, she's just living. When I was 20, I was married to her dad and getting ready to have her brother. And I just like, don't have kids. It's not a necessity. You don't.
Yeah.
I promise you're going to love your life so much more without them.
It's interesting because it's definitely going that way. I was a different one. I'm a few years older than you. And, I was like her, and and do I feel like I missed out? Because my assistant, I don't know how old my assistant is. She must be like 32 or 33 by now. And she asked me one day, why didn't you have kids? And I said, it just didn't happen. I always had my head so far up the asses of my businesses. I was a very much wanting to work.
Yeah.
But I believe it was divine intervention, because if I would have met the right one that would have showed the right amount of interest and just was the right kind, I probably would have fallen victim and not, people think, well, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I'm totally cool. Do I feel like I missed out by not having kids? Perhaps. Do I love my life? Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? I do.
As a woman with 4 children, you missed nothing.
Okay.
You missed nothing. And it's funny because my children are my karma, and I see it manifested in their personalities, in the way that they show up in the world. It's almost like looking at fragments of myself out in the world. And I think if parents could be honest about that, they'll have less judgment on their children, right? Like when your children aren't doing the things you want them to do or you think they should do, because to some degree, we're always measuring our children up against other people's children and other societies.
Yeah.
But one day I just went, that's fragments of myself out in the world. I mean, right down to personalities.
Yeah, my reasoning for wanting kids was very selfish. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. I wanted to know what it felt like to be pregnant.
Every person who has children have them for very selfish reasons.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what it was like to be pregnant. I wanted my own baby. I wanted to dress them. I wanted to mold them. There's no person having children for altruistic reasons. It's all selfish.
I wanted to know what my baby would look
like.
I wanted somebody to take care of me when I got old, I feel bad for my dad because he has no grandkids. Obviously, he's not getting any because my sister is 3 years older than me. But hey,
y'all are a family of smart women, I see.
I've lived not the typical life of somebody maybe my age, and I went off and moved away and moved away again. So I have a lot of friends who are my age and older in the same situation. So I never felt the intense pressure, the peer pressure and it just didn't happen, and I think I was secure enough to be, because, we all could have laid up and got pregnant. Every one of it. Like I could have gotten pregnant easily, You know
what my mother said to me? This is how I ended up with my first child. And I swear I've said this to other women and it has stopped them, because my God, did it stop me. So when I got married, my mother said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to wait to have kids. And this one question shifted my world. She said, who told you could have them?
So she made you feel that you might not be able to have children?
Well, I think women walk around with the assumption that simply because they have the organs that they will get pregnant, that you could
Yes.
decide, right? So she said, "Have you been pregnant before?" And I said, "No." She goes, "Well, who told you could actually have them?" And I was just sitting at the dining room table and I go, "Well, that is an assumption. That is an assumption made, right? Because if you have never been pregnant before, why do you assume that you could get pregnant?"
Yeah.
And I wish my mother had asked that to my brother's wife at the time, because they got married and decided they were professionals and they were going to wait and wait. And she had the hardest time. And they only have one child. And they simply only have one child because she could not get pregnant after that. And, you know, we now know a lot of what happens to the fetus is based on the man's sperm and not the woman's egg, like we were taught to believe, right?
Yes.
But but who knows how his sperm was aging, right? Because we just always thought, because I think with both women and men get married or they get together and they say, well, we're gonna wait. He never got anybody pregnant, and she's never been pregnant. And so this assumption that simply because you have the parts that exist, that you will have children. And I remember thinking, well, let's try. Well, obviously I could get pregnant because I got pregnant on the first goddamn try. And I was like, well, here we are. And I'm like, that woman tricked me into this baby. And I said to my mom, I said, I think you tricked me into that baby, because my mother was I should have known. I should have been paying attention. My mother was very fertile. She had 7 children. Her mother was fertile. They had 16 kids. So there was why did I even think fertility would even be a problem for me?
I do not know.
Considering but when you're young, but it was a question that did stop me, because she was right. I had never been pregnant, and I just assumed that I could get pregnant. Well, obviously we know that I could, but back then you just don't know. So when women say, "Well, I'm like, but you didn't even know if you actually could have gotten pregnant."
I think now more people are like, "Oh my gosh, I might not be able to have kids," there's just so much around fertility.
Yeah,
we know too much. You know what I'm saying?
We know too much. Back then, we didn't know as much.
Yeah.
We just didn't know as much. So we just relied on what nature and bodies do to kind of produce kids. And that's kind of what happened. But yeah, I think my mother tricked me into the first pregnancy, because had she never said that, I would have waited. I would not have tried right away, or just to see if it could happen. So yeah, she tricked me into that first kid.
They be wanting the grandkids. They really
do. She was a good grandma too.
Oh, that's nice.
She was a good grandma. And not that I could have done anything about it, but I think it's my biggest regret about having children walking the earth, is that they do not have my mother as a grandmother, because she was a different,
different than the mother that you had. I'm
sure.
Like
my mother was obsessed with her grandchildren.
Yeah, my mom would have been too. And honestly, my mom died when I was 23.
Oh, and my God, so young.
Yes, she was 49. So when I turned 50, it was just like, I made it to 50, right? And it was a big deal. And so my whole intention was, I'm just gonna, when I have kids one day, because you assume you're gonna have kids, then I'll move home so I can drop them off with my mother. Yeah. And because she loved babies and kids. And then when she was gone, stuff sort of changed. Yeah. I think when she first died, you immediately, because I was so young, you're like, I should get married and have kids. And I was dating this guy, and my God, thank God,
I'm fortunate.
Nice enough guy, but you have that wanting to create a family because you just lost your mother kind of thing, and you want to have a baby. That's the only time I considered it, but I knew better. Especially with who I was dating. And by the time we broke up, I don't know, a year later or 2 years, whatever it was, I was well over that and on with my career and the rest of my life. So, yeah, I miss out. I have a godson. I have godchildren, that whole thing.
Yeah.
They include me, love me. Yes, all of the things. So that's
And this having children so that they'll take care of you. Listen, as a
not going to
person who
happen.
worked in nurse staffing, there's a lot of elderly people, and it is the goodness of those healthcare workers that's making sure that they get fed and bathed. Those kids aren't there. So kids aren't an insurance package that they will take care of you in your old age anyway, right? And part of that is, I think, the way that it's hard for young people to even get a foot up in life makes it hard. Like when you have spent your whole 20s and 30s, 40s busting your ass just to keep a house, just to get your kids off to school. By the time your parents get to an age where they need you, a lot of these people are just exhausted. Sometimes it's not from just utter neglect. It's from like the system is designed to exhaust us all. And so, for those of us who are making the pivot, we need community to come around us. Right.
Yeah.
And I say this on TikTok all the time. I'm like, if it's a Black woman doing anything, I don't care what she's selling, buy it.
Yeah.
Community has to be beyond just us saying we're in community. Because what community looks like is not just care about my mental and my emotional, but you care about my financial and everything else to make sure that I'm okay in the way that I want to make sure that you're okay. Yeah. So when you ask me, it's like, will you come on my podcast? I'm like, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm thinking about ways, what you're doing is very important. The empathy scorecard, that's very important. It's very necessary. Like, I feel like the community that I'm creating, somebody's like, you just don't know how important this is. This is so important.
It is.
And I feel it's important. And I don't want to fuck it up because I feel it's important. No, I don't think so. I like the conversation that we're having, and that conversation where I had the panel on and we were talking about Black women with each other. It is the number one comment that I get about, it's not the white women, it's the Black women. And then when we have the conversation, it didn't do as well. Right. And, and I am looking at the numbers because I'm trying to figure out what content to bring.
What works. Yeah.
And, and I said a lot of you watching are the problem, right? A lot of things that we're talking about are the triggers. But, just like with your empathy scorecard, I'm the type of person like, yeah, I really want to know this about myself. This is important to my healing and my growth and my journey.
Yeah.
A lot of us don't.
We talk about healing and growth and journey without doing the necessary work of it. Like, I often think, like, because I said to somebody, I'm like, if I was selling a course that I literally could just scam you, $29.99, you come in and it ain't worth anything. But if I told you in that course, I could help you make money, blah, 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 people would spend their money because they think they're going to figure out how to make money. But if I say, here's a tool, the only thing I'm promising you is you're going to get to know yourself a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
You're going to get to know yourself a little bit better. It is because I don't think a lot of us as Black women like looking at ourselves.
No.
We don't like what's reflected back. And you know what's happening right now on TikTok with the bullying of that young lady who
yes,
and the people involved in that were the women who look like her. And Dominique Morgan had asked the question. She said, why didn't we get these people off? And I said, because it's a Venn diagram. The same people that bullied her are the people that watch, whatever story you tell yourself to make yourself feel better. But if you're on a messy side of TikTok where it's constantly about tearing down Black people, Black women, you are the problem in the same way that the people who, that you have to feed the machine. Like, they exist on the energy of you.
Yes.
They exist on the energy of you. And Black women, particularly Black women, we don't like looking at ourselves. We like looking at ourselves from a physical perspective. We want to make sure our hair is cute, our makeup is done well. We dress, we got style, we got charisma, right? Like when I was saying to you, like what people perceive a lot of times as Black women's confidence in their stride isn't always confidence. It's just the armor you have to put on to go out into a society that hates you because you're Black. Yes, and so you've developed that walk, and we have misinterpreted that walk to mean confidence when it's just protection.
It's true. It's true. We are so horrible. And it's easy. I scroll. I love TikTok, right? I have
Yeah.
to push it aside. It's doing what it was designed to do. It's so addictive.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen once they flip the switch or whatever. But the comment section, the things that people are saying, the things that people have the audacity to say,
Yeah.
it's like, why would you say that to anybody?
Why would I just would never. And it's funny because like when I make comments back and it, like I said, this event made me pause and say, do I have to respond to the comment? Right. Especially if it's going to drive. No, I don't always have to respond. I block people every day. Right. Because, you say that I educate them, but I don't. I don't spend time. Like if somebody white is in my space and they get educated, it's because they want to be educated.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right. And when I say they want to be, they just want to learn something different. They want a different perspective. But I don't go out of my way to try to convince people who have an argument to my point. I just block those people. Because before you got to me, I promise you've done that to another Black woman on this platform.
Well, and a lot of people wouldn't even take the time to do that, is what my point was. And, you're definitely not going out of your way to do anything. And that's why I thought, oh, yeah, you'll be good for the podcast. But the way that you take the time when somebody does appear.
When they do appear, because I always say, I'm never really responding to the commenter.
Yeah.
I've said that. I'm never really responding to them because there's something in us. Like if somebody makes a video, you almost get afraid to click on it, right? And if I'm responding to your comment and you think, oh, sometimes I don't even think a lot of those people even watch it. I think they get really nervous and they just don't even watch it. And so I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. So when I'm making a response, I'm talking to the white woman for whom it's not her comment, but it is her belief.
Yes.
And but because it's not her name at the top of that comment, she's going to listen. Even if the woman whose name at the top of the comment won't. And so I'm always mindful that if the name says Sally probably is going to block me, not even watch the video. Mm-hmm. But Deborah's going to roll up on that video and Deborah's going to read Sally's comment and be like, well, that's what I believe too. Deborah's going to listen because I'm not addressing her. I'm talking to Sally.
Right. No, that's true. I just post clips of, the podcast.
Podcast. Yeah.
I used to do direct videos before I started the podcast, but I've never responded. Somebody, one person did. I commented. You watched The Unpunishable Woman, the Shanti. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she responded. I mean, she's blowing up. She's going. So, but I wanted to have her on, and we talked, and she said she would, but I think she's just so in the thick of her thing right now, and hopefully one day I'll be able to get her on. But
the thing I love about Oshani too, the Unpunishable Woman, is that she doesn't come on screen made up either.
That's not even who, I don't think that's who she ever was. She doesn't like. I do, I don't come on like your makeup is very pretty and stuff like that. I don't even know how to do all that.
My mother was very much a fashion girly.
So was mine. I just don't. And if she were here right now, she'd be all of it. But I just, girl.
Now, not makeup, because she was Pentecostal, so they didn't wear any makeup, honey.
Oh, no?
She didn't wear any makeup, didn't wear any jewelry other than her wedding ring and a watch, and she never wore pants.
Wow.
But when I tell you, baby, sis, 2-piece suits for church, it's Kojic level. That's my mom dressed like the Kojic first, like that. So she was always like dressed up, and the hats matched the outfit and the shoes. Mm-hmm. So I grew up watching my mother get dressed, right? And just being dressed. And so as a function of watching her, it just became fashion just became something I loved because I watched my mother get dressed every day. And then once I didn't start wearing makeup until I was like 38.
My mom was like that. We were at Saks and Neiman's every weekend. We were always shopping at sales. We were doing all the things. And My mom, I told you she died at 49, 6 months shy of her 50th birthday. My mom was depressed. She wasn't happy. Like, she had
Mm,
all of the things.
yeah.
And, she wasn't. And I just realized, like, I like to look cute. But having all of the things as a spoiled child who had all of the things,
Well, yeah.
realizing that it's not necessary. And I see people so desperately struggling to keep up with all of it.
You
And
don't see me. You see me at the
no,
thrift
you're
store.
thrifting. You're thrifting. Like, yes, I love that.
I'm
And
I'm at the thrift store and I'm eating the girls up with my fashions, and I'm
you
like,
are. Like, I'm like,
my
oh
outfit
my
was
God.
$5, babe, from shoe to pants to top to belt. It was $5, right?
I've seen you. I when I first found you, I think you were in an all blue ensemble and
Yeah.
you were telling us about your thrifting and stuff like that. But again, I've been working at home since 2007, so my whole, and even coming on here, one of my friends, she's a different type of friend. She's like, "You should be more glam." I'm like, "Girl, no. That's gonna, if I had to be glam to come on to the camera, we would never be sitting here right now."
Well, here's the thing. You don't need it because you have amazing skin.
Thank you.
Like,
I
your
do
skin
get
is
that.
amazing. I love your hair. Like,
Thank you.
you're your own version of beautiful. Like,
Thank
I
you.
when I see you on TikTok, when I see you come down on YouTube, I think, oh, she's very pretty.
Thank you. Yeah. And
Yeah.
this getting used to this,
Yeah.
and just, that's a whole nother conversation as well, because people say, "Oh, your hair, yeah, it's cool now. This kind of hair wasn't cool when
It
we were
wasn't cool.
kids."
It was not
Okay,
cool.
so it's just like, just really learning to love ourselves and own it and stuff like that. And I feel like, I remember, I'll probably cut this out, but maybe I won't. My old, and I talk about him a lot, but my old boss, when I went gray, this was after I quit working for him. He couldn't dye his hair because he was deathly allergic to hair dye.
Hmm.
And one time he called me, and I was like, "This is Erin," on the phone. And I was like, he said something, and I'm like, "Where have you been? I haven't seen you all day." Black man, pretty fair complected with freckles.
Mm.
And he's like, "You won't be seeing me." And I was like, "What happened? What are you talking about?" He had tried to dye his hair, and his whole face swelled up like mask. Like mask. I'm talking about the cartilage on his ears. He could not.
Ooh.
So he was one of those people, like, if you can dye your hair, why wouldn't you dye your hair? And I used to dye my hair, right? Because, but you can't get a comb through. This is too much, right?
Yeah.
So when I went gray, I was like, "You know what? I'm going to make it hot." And he's like, "It's not hot. It's not hot." I was like, "Well, I'm going to make it hot. I'm going to make it hot." And he just said, "No more dick for you." And I was like, okay. Okay. And
Yeah.
it was not like it was like a challenge.
A man saying that when they are literally paying streetwalkers who ain't had a bath in 10 days is laughable. Like that is the easiest thing in the world
To
to
get.
get.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
easier than fresh water.
Yes.
What are you
Yes.
talking about?
Do you know I have 20-year-olds yelling at me across the street about the hair? So please stop. And he's like, "I didn't." Now he'll say, "I didn't say." I was like, "Yes, you did." "Okay, I was wrong. I was wrong." I was like, "Okay, you were wrong." So, just learning to love ourselves how we are.
How
Is
we
that,
are.
I clearly have, my hair doesn't, I have products in my hair, but, just learning to look at myself.
You look beautiful.
Thank
You
you.
look fine.
Learning to
Like, you
look at
need to
my,
change nothing.
oh, and I have no intention. I'm good, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, we're talking about getting glammed and people telling you what you need to do to be on the internet. This is what you need to do. I had to learn, and I tell people this who want to go gray because they see me and they want to go gray.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you're going to have to go through it's like growing your hair out. You're going to have to go through like the ugly stage or whatever, but
Yeah.
you just have
Yeah.
to learn to get used, or when you go natural, you're going to have to learn to get used to looking at yourself.
Listen, I got a few more pounds to get off me,
Me
but
too.
I normally, like, when I'm not wearing wigs, I just shave my head bald.
Really? That would
I
be very striking.
I love the way I look with a bald head. And it's funny because my friends would be like, well, you could pull it off because you got like a cute shaped head. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't know I had a cute shaped head when I was shaving it. I had no idea what was underneath my hair, right? And I was just like, I think as a Black woman, I was like, we are so enslaved to hair. I don't want to be enslaved to it.
But you have a nice face, so you can do, everybody
I'm like,
can't.
if I just don't want to be enslaved to it, so I just shaved it. I just went completely and utterly
Wow.
bald. Not a fade, no nothing, bald, like to the scalp. I like myself bald when I'm a little bit thinner.
I understand that.
It's really striking than a fatter face, but yeah, I like it's hair. It's a wig. It's take it off. And I will come on camera, sometimes not done, if I have something to say. And before I wouldn't have done that, I'd be like, okay, you just never know who's going to see you, blah, blah, blah. Like my greatest fear though, honestly, I got to be honest with you. My greatest fear is the time that I get on TikTok in a bonnet or not, and I say the most profound shit and it ends up on Good Morning America. You know what I mean? Because they don't care. Like if you say something and they go, listen to this, and all of a sudden it's me with the bonnet.
I don't get the bonnet thing.
If I'm on with a bonnet, I'm just talking to my people. I never really try to say anything that I know has the possibility to really kind of shift and change. And if I do, I'll get up and I'll record it, but I'll put a picture over it, or I'll do a video on top of it. I'll overlay. Yeah. If I feel like I need to get it out. But yeah, that's always been my fear. Like, you just never know which video is going to do anything. And so I would hate that they grab that video when I'm just like, that's what keeps me showing up online just a little bit different.
No, I mean, I always know you're going to look pretty. Your makeup is going to look pretty, all of the things. So, Tammy, tell everybody where they can find you, how they can get the empathy scorecard, everything they need to know.
So you can find me at my website. It is tammytriolo.com. You can find the empathy scorecard there, the self-empathy scorecard, and of course my book. And at the beginning of the year, I will be releasing my second book, Empathy in the Rubble of Religion, What Remains When the Doctrine Falls Away.
That right there, I feel like I need to have you back on that, because religion, that's actually what me and somebody else are going to talk about. And it's going to come up many, many times, just because Black women, especially with the religion conversation, it just goes deep.
I think that's the number one driver for why Black people, more specifically Black women, lack empathy for other Black people. Because I find wherever religion is present, Black people become hardened in their stand and in their position.
Well, we need to have that conversation. So we definitely will be, if you're down, having you back.
I am down. So that's where your audience can find me. You can go to my website, tammytriolo.com. Everything you want to know about me and need to know about me, from consulting to the book to the scorecards, everything will be there. At the beginning of the year, we're working on bundles so people can bundle the empathy, self-empathy, and the book in one bundle at one price. So you can get it all in one place. But you can go to my website, tammytriolo.com. And if you are, I'm not sure when Erin's going to run this, if it's going to run in the month of December, but if it is, I'm going to tell you, go and get the empathy and self-empathy scorecard, because at the beginning of the year, it will be going up.
Okay. I you know what? And I think I will run it in December, because you were right in alignment with the way the conversation went. It was right in alignment with a lot of the things I've been talking about recently. So, yeah. So, well, Tammy, thank you so much for being here. This has been amazing. And all of your information, Tammy's information, you guys, is below. And then it will be on the screen as well. And so reach out to her, get your empathy scorecard, take it, do the exercise. I'm going to do it too. And we're going to come back and talk about it. And yeah. So thank you so much again. And we will see you guys in the next video.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.